For the base of this build, I'm using the Cage Rager from Privateer Press. While I'd originally gotten him for a different build, he's simply too swole a figure to try and not orcify. I started by scraping down his legs, replacing his feet with those of a Death Dread, and scratch building him a plasticard exoskeleton for his legs. I'm following the pattern I used in a previous build, which you can check out if you're curious about it. It's pretty rough at this point, but will look better later once I add rivets and details. My original intention at this point was to replace the Cage Rager's arms and yoke with the standard Ork Power Claw and Shooter, but as I looked at him, a more interesting option occurred to me of how to recontextualize his pose. What if instead of a yoke, his hands were slung over a gun? This seemed like a promising avenue, so I snipped the Cage Rager's hands from the yoke and cleaned the stumps. This is the gun from one of the Ork infantry kits. I cut off the strap and arm and split the gun barrel. I planned on cheating a bit and instead of fitting the fingers around the barrel, simply glue it on either side to get the same effect. The problem, which I'd known would crop up, is that the yoke isn't straight, so a direct line between the hands would bisect his head. My plan to get around this was simply to have a two-barreled solution where the barrel his hands would be hanging from would be the lower one. That worked for that side, but as I tried to add more gun bits to the other, I realized that wasn't going to be sustainable as the shape of the gun would simply end up looking extremely yoke-like. One option would have been to raise the height of the hands, but that would have entailed elongating his forearms disproportionate to the rest of his arms. Instead, I decided to carve into the nape of my orc's neck until there was a straight line between the two hands. I snipped the end from the plasticard dowel, adding another dowel above it, then glued a rectangle of plasticard to form a crude stock. Then pushed an orc head into place to get a feeling for if his proportions were looking okay. And from the front, they were. It looks really good, but the problem is that from the side and top, you can tell the head is significantly lower than is anatomically possible. One option to fix the problem would have been to simply shave down his massive back muscles. But that would have introduced all kinds of proportional issues of its own, not to mention getting rid of the swollenness that had attracted me to the model in the first place. While I hadn't wanted to, the better option seemed to be to elongate his forearms instead and raise the height of where he's holding the gun. This introduced a fair bit of wonkiness to them, but I wasn't too worried as I knew I could cover them later with gauntlets of some type. You can see here how much more naturally his head sits and how much less it looks like it's just protruding from his gun. Speaking of, it had been looking a bit too much like a scavenged grot rifle, so above the long-barreled portion I added a lengthened version of the Flash Git's gun. The end result was pretty badass, but the problem is that it really overshadowed the rest of the orc. It's not super noticeable here, but in person miniatures are almost always viewed from above and you couldn't really see the rest of him. To minimize the problem, I essentially got rid of the bottom long barrel and added a short Meganob shooter to the bottom. Its hanging belt gives him something of a Vietnam War aesthetic that I liked. With the position of his arms finally worked out, I went about the business of making them less wonky by cutting him a pair of bracers out of plasticard. They're squarish and simple and I kind of hated how they looked, so I later replaced the right one with strips of plasticard and the left with some green stuff. His bared legs were also beginning to look kind of weird to me, so I cut up these armor plates and trimmed them to fit beside the leg piston. And with that, my warboss was ready to haul his gun into battle. Though it was a pain to get all the angles of his gun right, in the end I think he looks better for all the fiddling and it gives him a unique look that sets him apart from other warbosses. I think it's easy sometimes with models to go the easy route and make them generic instead of taking advantage of the particular quirks and qualities of the base model. As of the posting of this video, he's up on eBay, so if you're interested in buying him, head over there and build whatever you're comfortable with. Otherwise, hit the like button, subscribe, or check out some of my other conversions. Thanks for watching.